I have literally tested every single recovery device on the market, and most of them are just very expensive placebo. So you've bought the percussion gun, you've tried the cupping, been foam rolling for years, and like nothing ever really works in any kind of dramatic way, and there's a reason for that. Not one of those devices has ever been clinically proven to do anything for your fascia. None of those devices have been peer-reviewed and studied to remodel the tissue fascia. We did a peer-reviewed and published study of our methodology, and every single person in that study regenerated their fascia tissue, and you can see that in ultrasound imaging. Let me show you exactly what's happening inside your body. You know, everyone is out there trying all types of manual body work, trying to understand the fascia and how to remodel it, when it's really so much more simple than that. We really have to go to the science. We can't just look at a video and say, oh, because they said this does fascia, it does, because that's just not the case. So until somebody brings me ultrasound, CAT scans, where we can actually physically see the fascia remodeling, then I'm just not interested. And I hope you're not either. We gotta really kind of weave through this BS out there.
Cellulite is an aesthetic pathophysiology.
So what we saw, and we did 90 days of load, stretch, and shear with our tools, Nexcia or Fascia Blaster. What we saw was not only that the tissue in the first ultrasound went from being thick, dry, crusty, and for me, the biggest thing is that it's unorganized, but we literally saw it start to change in 30 days. We saw it really change in 60 days, and then we saw it totally remodeled by the end of 90 days. We know definitively that we are doing something that has never been done in the history of the world, which is actually remodeling. And so what's the difference in like breaking up an adhesion and remodeling? You know how when a spider makes a web, he knows exactly what to do. He knows how to make it super perfect and beautiful. And then if you cut that web, or if you put that spider on caffeine or LSD, he starts to do something different. So it's this very primordial part of our body, this fascia system. So what we saw was just like the spider. Like we are putting the spider, our own ability to generate fascia in the best possible way, organized, soft, supple, hydrated. We saw that by using our tools to put the body into its own healing environment. Our body, just like that spider, knows how to create this perfect web to house our organs, our muscles, and our brain. And not only that, provide that electrical charge to the cells for us to reverse age. So it's really exciting to see that this is something that can be done with mechanical pressures. This is not something that we can take a pill or do surgery for. It actually requires very specific mechanical pressures, and that's what I've spent the last 30 years working on, is discovering what those mechanical pressures were through the research and then designing the instruments to be able to accomplish this effect. And let me just say this, once your tissue is remodeled, that's as good as it gets, guys. So this is one of those things that, like, I don't care what kind of peptides you're doing, yoga, you're stretching, your mental work, I'm all for it, but you cannot skip this, because this is kind of that primordial system of the body that determines the health of everything else. So that percussion gun, that massage gun that's in your closet, yeah, it's been lying to you. Every type of tissue device on the market is missing something. Cupping gives us that stretch. Percussion guns don't really give us much at all. They definitely are missing load and shear. You know, even traditional massage, we've got squish meeting squish. The Nexcia delivers all three mechanical pressures needed to remodel the tissue, and we do it through a very special new technology called VersoForce. This isn't marketing, you guys. This is physics, and that's why we're the only one with the proof in the pudding. And when I say proof, I mean clinically proven, peer-reviewed, and published science. And that means that we're looking at the body, inside the body, in those ultrasounds. So that's super important. If you haven't been around and you're not in the fascia world, then you wouldn't even know this, but I'm gonna try to explain it in a super simple way. We always thought that the extracellular matrix, which is the fascia, was basically just made up of stuff. So we could go into it, like your GACs and things like ground substance. And then we thought that the fibroblast was producing the stuff, and we thought that the fibroblast was also producing hyaluronic acid, which is what makes it glide and what makes that electrical charge travel. Any tissue device out there or mechanical procedure, you're really trying to set off the fibroblast because it does both things. Or does it? No, because in 2018, Dr. Carlos Stecca came out at the Global Fascia Congress and introduced us to the concept of the fasciocyte, which is a new cell that's identified that it produces the hyaluronic acid. Why do we care? Because a fibroblast is excited through load and stretch, and the fasciocyte is excited through shear. Those are different mechanical pressures, and if you don't have all three, you're not going to regenerate the tissue. So that is where the Fascia Blaster and the Nexcia come in, because they were designed from their origin to actually provide these types of pressures. And it's the reason why Fascia Blaster took off and went crazy, because it actually does what it says. We're not saying, oh, it's a little pain relief here. Oh, it can impact cellulite. Oh, it's great for recovery. That's all in the mix. But what we're saying is what is actually happening, and you can see it right here in the ultrasounds, is that your tissue basically goes from crappy to perfect. It is like turning back the hands of time. And it is because we are using all three of those mechanical pressures in one. And the Nexcia just makes it so freaking easy, you guys, because it's all mechanical. You don't have to think at all. You just pick it up and go. And you're getting load, stretch, and shear. So if you want to keep doing what you're doing, just do it and Nexcia and fascia blasting. Don't skip these things, because other devices and methodologies just simply don't regenerate and remodel the tissue. This is the device I wish existed 20 years ago. There is a reason that physical therapists and body workers have been frustrated for decades. I know, I used to own a physical therapy clinic, and that's because regenerating the fascia tissue requires three specific mechanical forces: load, stretch, and shear. And if you miss this, then you're literally just moving skin around and squishing muscles. That's why the Nexcia multi-directional claws are so important. The Nexcia delivers all three: load, stretch, shear in one mechanical stroke. That's not just an upgrade, you guys, that's a category change. I'm so excited about the different discs that go onto the Nexcia, because this is not happenstance. These were specifically designed to give the mechanical stressors that the body needs to completely regenerate the fascia tissue. And we've seen this in our peer-reviewed and published science, that we basically go from crappy aging tissue to literally perfectly remodeled fascia. There is no other device that can promise that. And there's a real specific reason. So when we look at these claws, we know that this is going to be using the VersoForce technology. But what happens is that each individual claw, the way that I oriented it, it is going to go across the muscle fiber, down the muscle fiber, and diagonal across the muscle fiber. And while it's doing that, it's actually providing load, which is when we push. It's providing a stretch, because it's going to pull that fascia a little bit with it. There is that little bit of friction. And then when that claw goes down in between those muscle fibers, that is where we get shearing. So how incredible is it in that one super easy to use device that you literally just pick up, turn on, put on your body, and go. I've taken all the guesswork out of how do we regenerate this fascia tissue. So we don't need to know anymore, like, why is my ankle tight, or how come my IT band hurts all the time, or why am I having this migraine? These are all fascia-based problems. And if we regenerate the fascia tissue, then all of those problems just dwindle away. And it's not some snake oil. This is scientifically based on all the research that comes out of the Global Fascia Congress every year. I just stay on top of it, and I make sure that I design my products to meet the needs of my customers. 100% of the participants in the peer-reviewed and published study showed that their fascia tissue regenerates, and that is not something that's ever been done in the history of the world. I've spent over 30 years deeply really deeply down the rabbit hole of fascia science. And what I can tell you is that nothing is unintentional when it comes to the Nexcia. Like every single pattern came together to create the VersoForce technology. This was not a engineering or a design application. This is 30 years of my hands-on experience and knowledge with product design culminating together in something that has been scientifically proven to actually regenerate fascia tissue. This is thousands and thousands, probably 30,000 or more hours of clinical observation, and then one very specific discovery where I learned how the body actually gets in the environment to just completely repair itself. So I began my career as a patient. If you don't know the Ashley Black story, I had a near-death experience. Actually, I had a death experience, and I was ridden with this flesh-eating bacteria that basically ate away my pelvis and hip, which I still have a massive prosthetic that is kind of a Frankenstein hip. And so for me, it was always about the need to keep the tissue healthy to support that joint. I have always been fascinated with fascia, and not only what it could do for me to take me from crippled to normal, but what it could do with a professional athlete and take them all the way to the next level. And so right when I started, my first clients were NFL, NBA, Olympic track. And what was happening is they were sending me the injured athletes, and they were hitting their personal best. And so everybody was like, what are they doing? What is going on the swamp water down there in Texas with this crazy lady, Ashley Black? What it turns out is that what I originally was doing intuitively with my hands, I knew that I needed to do with some type of instrument that was going to mimic the knuckles. And that is where the original Fascia Blaster claws came from. And this result that we've been getting now for literally the better part of 20 years has just been observing what works and then having it peer-reviewed and clinically tested. We're actually setting off the body's natural healing, and we're seeing a regeneration of that fascia tissue. And when you regenerate fascia tissue, it's very primordial. It is the electricity system of the body. It's powering up the mitochondria. It's making sure that everything can glide. Like, this is the easiest thing that you can do for your health, your longevity, feeling good, looking good, because again, fascia is sort of the capitan, the driver of everything else that's happening in the body. The angle matters, the speed matters, the amount of pressure matters, it all matters. So watch closely. Before you turn this on, let me show you something most people miss. It's very important what level of speed that we're using. It's very important the way that we press this on our body, what angle we come in at. All of it matters. And if you are doing this wrong, then you got a very expensive device that's out there collecting dust. But if you get it right, you will understand why people are raving about why this device is life-changing. So the goal with tissue repair is always to go little by little, layer by layer. So the first thing that I've done is that I have designed this red light feature to go with a lymphatic scrubber. So if our skin is sensitive, it's probably because our lymphatic system is sluggish and not working so well. So this is the particular plate that you put on. You can use it at any speed. So once you've used the infrared to excite the mitochondria, flush out that lymphatic system, then when we can go in with a small claw plate, okay? And so the small claws, if you see, they're not gonna go very deep into the tissue just by the nature of the fact that they are small. So this is an amazing warm-up for those surface layers of muscle. And again, you can use the big plate or the small plate, just depending on what part of your body that you're using. And then once that feels really good and you're feeling like you want more, that's when we are gonna switch to a deeper claw so that we can go down into like several layers of muscle fiber. And it's just as simple as spinning off the disc and changing it out for one of these large claw heads. And again, there's two sizes of these with the Lux kit, and you can either do the big one or the little one. I'll put this little one on to show you guys. Once you're loving it at full speed, like to me, this feels incredible. So once this feels good, then you can actually use the angle technique, which is where instead of using it flat, you just tilt it up on its side like this, and that will go really, really deep. It'll dig right into like a bicep tendon, It'll go down several muscle layers. So that's it. We're just gonna do little by little, layer by layer, and the device is there to take out all the guesswork and just help you to start from the most sensitive tissue and the most surface tissue, and then go down a little bit, and then as deep as you wanna go. And then this motor is like a racehorse, people. So it doesn't slow down. And when you can spend 90 days, that's what we saw in our peer-reviewed and published study, going little by little, layer by layer, be patient, be consistent, you're going to have this result. Going from crappy, trashy tissue to perfectly aligned, hydrated, supple fascia tissue. This is something that's never been done in the history of the world. And how easy. You just change a few discs out on the Nexcia and go for it. Come on. This isn't my opinion. This is peer-reviewed and published science. Some of you will bruise, some of you will be very sore, and these are actually good things. But when you do this, you're actually setting off a healing effect. The people in the study reported these mild symptoms like bruising, itching, swelling that resolved really quickly. And then we did look at blood panels to determine if there was any long-term negative effect, and not only was there not a long-term effect, there was an amazing good long-term effect. Let me explain what's normal, what's not, and how a temporary discomfort can lead to a long-term change. So first of all, let's just quickly talk about bruising, because there's a big difference between a blunt force trauma contusion and the type of bruise that you may get from using your Nexcia or your Fascia Blaster. So the first thing that we want to understand is that when our tissue has micro adhesions in it, or big adhesions, those chunks that we can feel, whenever we are using that mechanical force to basically get the blood to flow where it has been stagnant, then when that blood comes to that area, it's going to create a bruise. These bruises can be sore. Actually, some people report that they feel better, but I just want you to understand that not only is it normal, that in some cases it can be desired. The goal is never to bruise or be sore, but if that's part of the process, then we're all okay with that. And I'm so excited too, with the Nexcia, we've got the, basically think like dry brushing meets red light. And so when we are bruised or sore from the actual act of using the Nexcia, this is a great head to use to kind of like speed along those fluids flowing. What's not normal is to be bruised in like a giant chunk. So if we have really thick, big bruises, we just need to lay off a little bit. Like if you have the little cheetah bruises, or if you went in, for instance, on a shoulder really intensely and you have a bruise, I think we can call that a success. But there is a way to go too hard, and it's not going to have a long-term bad effect, but I am just not a fan of getting totally bruised. So one of the things that we did in the study that we didn't really want to, but I felt it was important to put it into the study design, is that we took people who had not been doing body work and we put them on the table, and we used 2 therapists at full force to see what was the worst case scenario as far as intensity. And it's pretty interesting. You can always go look at the study and see that blood work, because we saw a spike in basically toxins coming out of the tissues, and then it was resolved in about 3 days. There is somewhat of a, not for everybody, but in some cases when we have really damaged tissue, when we go through that process of restoration, it's like cleaning out your closet. You know, you got to dig everything out and everything looks crazy and your clothes are everywhere and shoes are dragged into the kitchen, but we're actually making progress on that closet. So that's the kind of thing that I want you to understand with using the Nexcia or Fascia Blasters, is that you are going to be going little by little, layer by layer, restoring as you go, overcoming the symptoms, using your red light, hopping in the sauna, drinking your water, so that your body can handle the amount of detoxification that you're going to have in your fascia tissues. But how cool is that? You're actually restoring fascia, not just another recovery gadget. This one comes with clinical trials and proof. You know, everyone's running around talking about recovery, increases circulation, lymphatic drainage, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, when we recover quicker, it is when our cells turn over faster. And the cells specifically that we want to turn over faster, because they're the ones that set off this whole proliferation and restoration of our body, is the fibroblast and the fasciocyte. And those take different mechanical pressures. So without stimulating both the fibroblast and the fasciocyte, and they are done differently, then those cells can go dormant. And what that means is that you're going to have senescent cells. cells, or what we call zombie cells. And what we have seen in the clinical research is that we're restoring the electricity system to these cells, and that they are proliferating more quickly and more effectively by using the Nexcia. Without proper stimulation, these cells actually end up dying. They're like little micro deaths, which I'm sure you can imagine relates to so many diseases. The Nexcia is not only the only device to ever be proven to wake them up, but we have the ultrasounds to prove it. What's so important in looking at these ultrasounds where we see the tissue going from basically diseased, it's thick, it's stagnant, to being smooth and supple. Why is this so important when we're talking about the senescent cells and like bringing life to cells? And I think this is where we need to really understand that fascia is the electricity system of the body that literally surrounds and penetrates every single cell. So all the stuff that we know about the Krebs cycle, I don't want to say it's not true, but it's limited, right? Because we've got to have that electrical current going in and out of the cell and between the cells with the fascia in order for those cells to not only stay alive, but again, just going back to being more like a baby, we want those cells to turn over quickly. And the more juice that we can get them, more electricity that we can get them traveling along the fascia, the better off that we are. And the fascia is, I always picture it like a jello mold that we just stick that brain in, we stick those muscles in, we stick the nervous system in. And we have spent all of our time just like powering up cars, trying to put oil and gas into them, and now we're putting electricity in them. We're just now starting to understand that with the human body. And it's like, yes, the cells are important, the nerve cells, the brain cells, the muscle cells, all of these things are important, but so is that power system, and that is the fascia. And again, I always go back to like, show me the money.
Derek, you better yell! Show me the money!
Like, show me the ultrasounds, because people will say, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, until you show me ultrasounds that show the very system that all this energy is traveling along, going from stagnant to perfect. I mean, we're literally seeing perfect in 90 days, then I don't want to hear about it. So this is your way, you guys. This is the way to take this very big concept of fascia and what it does, and recovering from your workouts, and blah, 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 and cut through the noise and just say, hey, pick up this device, use it all over your body, restore your fascia in every single nook and cranny, and you will be getting the most amount of power to your cells as possible. Hello.
Hello.
Did you hear? The most amount of power to those cells? And if we don't have micro cell death, then we don't have disease. So, and if we don't have stagnant lymph, stagnant blood, then we're not going to have those toxins just sitting in our body. So this is it. This is the thing. So don't skip your Nexcia, and don't ever forget how important your fascia is. There is a reason why so many people own massage guns and just don't really use them. And that's because they are really missing the whole opportunity here. Massage guns feel like they're doing something. It's like really aggressive, like there's the noise, there's the vibration, you might get that temporary feel good, or like, you know, that pounding effect is like, yeah, I'm getting in there. But here's what they're not telling you. There is not one single peer-reviewed or published study that shows that massage guns do anything for the fascia tissue, much less remodel it. Zero. Z-E-R-O, zero. We published our result in Cogent Medical Journal, and the difference isn't subtle. It's literally everything. So really what I just want to jump into is not so much why they don't work, and we can get into that just a little bit at the end of the video, but what I want to get into is what does work. And that is, we already know this is all published science that's come out of the Global Fascia Congress that we have every couple of years. And we know that there are 3 types of mechanical pressure, load, stretch, and shear that are required to set off the fasciocyte and the fibroblast. And massage guns just don't do that. We're not even sure if they provide load because they're providing a bang. So what your body actually needs, and you can assess any body work or any tool by looking at it this way, is it putting load? Is it providing a stretch? And is it providing a shear? And if it's not, then there's just no chance that it's going to regenerate tissue. And that's why we're so excited about the Nexcia, because it's a motorized version of those 3 actions. And then the proof is in the pudding. Like, we don't sit here and say, oh, it's great for collagen stimulation. Like, we're showing you it is literally remodeling the collagen fibers, which are known as the fascia. So this is a very exciting time to put that gun away and get your Nexcia. I also want to talk just a second about this effect. It's something that we don't really talk that much about. Even in science, it's hard to find these things. I was studying Tom Myers with anatomy trains when I came across the fascia has this incredible property. Like, when we go to catch a ball, we're not actually catching that with the muscles and the bones in our hand. Our fascia has this immediate ability to contract like this, and it goes on and off to help us with those motions. But I feel like when we're using any type of thing, whether we're beating ourselves with a stick or whether we're beating ourselves with a percussion gun, we could be setting off that reflex, which actually makes the fascia sort of cake up. And in fact, if you look at fighters will use different instruments to beat on their ribs because it creates that thick layer of fascia. Even surfers like me well, I don't get it because I use my Nexcia, but like below where they're banging their ribs on the board to steer it, they get this build up of fascia. So I think number 1, we want to have this amazing fascial effect, use the Nexcia, and then just be a little leery of anything that is beating or banging. I don't know if that's going to have a great positive impact on fascia, but I highly doubt it. This myth has been costing you for years. In 2019, the Applied Science Performance Institute studied our technology with 33 women, and we looked at blood, we looked at DEXA, we looked at ultrasound imaging, we did metabolic testing. Like, we wanted to really see what these devices were doing. And you know what? Every single participant showed in ultrasound imaging they were regenerating their fascia tissue. And in addition to that, we saw a reduction of inflammation. We saw a spot reduction of fat. We saw metabolic increase, and we saw really dramatic markers for collagen production. So it's like all things good and no things bad coming out of that study. And this was not a marketing study, people. This is science. I really love to talk about our study because I think that there is this myth out there that everybody who owns or designs a product is doing their study to like prove that it works. But I really had a much more pure heart moving into this study. I had already seen over the years like what my hands could do and what the tools could do. And so I was just looking to kind of determine the mechanism, like how is that happening? Or why is that happening? Or is there anything bad that could happen? What if we do it super intensely? And instead of being like, oh, let me go get FDA approval for the treatment of XYZ, which would have been really great from a profitability standpoint, but I just really wanted to know what was going on. And I felt like I could use that as a jump off point for really understanding the tools and then future product design. And so we took the 33 women. We started off by just really going intensely on them. For the first session, we basically used 2 therapists to go as hard as they could. We wanted to create that worst case scenario. And then these women did the work themselves. They were using the tools on themselves, and they did it over 90 days. And there was a lot of like, oh, I'm tired. We told them not to change their diet or exercise because we wanted to see what was purely happening with these devices. And then we looked at like sort of those inarguable measures. Like, you can't fake a blood result. You know, you can't fake that the C-reactive protein was reduced. We used ultrasound images, which like no one can look at our ultrasounds and be like, oh yeah, they're not remodeling collagen. It's like, do you see the fascia tissue? Completely remodeled. So I feel like it's a great way. I don't need to really defend myself or the tools or like really go crazy marketing them or anything, because when the science is there, the science is just there. So we're really proud of that. Not only the results that came out of the study, the safety standards that came out of the study, but then we put our study through the most rigorous standards. Like, you cannot just hop into a medical journal. You have to go through a certification, and then they have to peer review it. And we waited almost 2 years for that to happen. But now that that's over, we can clearly and unequivocally say what these instruments are doing to the human body. And it's incredible. Sadly, the fitness industry profits when they don't tell you this. Most devices promise this instantaneous result. What we promise is results that last. The fascia timeline regeneration is 90 days. That's biology, not marketing. I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens to your tissue week by week, month by month, and why the people who commit to this process never go back. It's kind of funny because my products are probably some of the very few on the market that can promise, and I promise you, to actually have an instantaneous effect. The first time you use the Nexcia, you're gonna feel different. Your tissue is going to be softer. You're gonna feel a result no matter which one of the discs that you use. But there's a reason why we've invested so much in research and development, and particularly our peer-reviewed study, to show that you can actually regenerate tissue in less than 90 days or around the 90-day period. I don't know if you know this or not, but prior to that, people thought it was 18 months. So we kind of were a groundbreaking study in even showing the 90 days. But what we really have to talk about here is that this is a 20 minutes on one general area, 3 to 5 times a week, and just being really consistent with that. I think we tend to take off on New Year's or starting a new program, and the reality is that this is the first place that you should start. Having good tissue going into whatever type of transformation that you're wanting to go to is, to me, the biggest impact that you can make. And so we're going to want you to start with your infrared and lymphatic scrubber, because that way you can sort of sweep the floor, so to speak. We're getting some of that trashy, toxic crap out of the body. Make sure to drink lots of fluids during this time, take your electrolytes, and then you're just gonna gradually go deeper and deeper and deeper with the other disc. And what you're gonna experience is, in the first 30 days, the remodeling isn't really happening. I can show you in the ultrasound. There's a tiny bit of change, but what you are going to do is to feel that your muscles are more supple. You're gonna feel more blood flow. And then when we start to get into that 60-day, and I'll show this ultrasound, that's when the body is like, okay, we are in this amazing environment. It's just like putting your plants in amazing nutrient-rich soil. And so around that 60-day mark, we start to see that tissue remodel. And you may already feel and look exactly the way that you want at 30 or 60 days. But what we did see is that it was pretty consistent, that by 90 days, we had gone from wherever these people started to what I call really perfect native fascia tissue. So it's slow and steady wins the race, everyone. Stay consistent.